Hello, now we're going to start doing some actual pruning, and some of the points we want to consider are looking for examples of dead branches perhaps, damaged, that might have been damaged somehow, disease, or crossing branches. So we have a rose bush here in front of us. It's called Campfire, and we've got some examples of all those in that one rose bush. We have this one over here that's been damaged down there, whether by crossing from other branches or by an insect disease, and it's not going to be able to sustain good growth, so that one we will remove. Also, crossing branches. Here's an example of a branch crossing right in the center, which it will be rubbing, whoops, he'll be rubbing against other branches. They don't allow space for the new growth to come because there will be new growth coming from the ground. And sometimes just they're dead, and we just need to take them back so that they'll have a better growth spurt from a stronger buds. We're going to do some extra pruning here, taking out crossing branches, that diseased one that we looked at or damaged one, and then we'll have a look and see how much better the center of the rose will be. So here we go. I'm going to remove this crossing one right down to the bottom, and there's another one here. I'll remove it down as far to the ground as I can get. I'll take a hold of it. There. Whoops, I didn't get it cut all the way through. There we are. So that's opening it up. I think we'll take this one out. Another thing to think of is little tiny spindly canes like these that we'll deal with later. But now we're going to go to the one that had that damage on it, and I'll try to get it there, get that little stub out of the way, and make a nice cut on an angle is a good idea, and there, close to the where the joint is. Although that one probably could come out of there. I'm just going to take it back to where I see a little bud that might send out better growth than this little skinny one. Here's another example of a little dead one. It died back to there, so it's hard to see. I'd like to take it down to a bud. I can't see him. In the meantime, I'm going to take this out so then I can see better. Okay, and there's a little, there, I think there's a bud down here. I'm going to take that out. So now we're opening up the center and giving it more chance to have new growth. Here's one that, now of these two, there's a ladybug. That's a good sign. Of these two, I'm going to take out the smaller one because it's not doing anything. And I'm cutting it on an angle just above a bud, and we can show that on another cane. Make a cut on this one, and I'll explain the reasoning here. On an angle, and we want to have it nice white in the center. That shows us that it's a good viable branch, so that the cut end looks the very same. Nice white pith there with the outer covering of the branch nice and green. So we know that's going to continue to send out new growth and be a good branch for the summer growth. Now there are some cases, and this rose is an example of a rose that tends to grow horizontally, and you won't have very many like that. But while we're at this one, I just think it's important to know that we don't want this rose to keep going out this way. So we're going to have to use some discipline and train them to send the shoots more upright. So even though these are good, healthy, big shoots all along here, they're just going to encourage it to go sideways. What we want is some growth to come upwards to give the neighbor some room. So I'm going to cut this just above this bud here on an angle and about less than 1/4 of an inch, so that then that shoot will be forced to grow more upright. And as we prune this rose bush more, that's what we'll be trying to do, forcing them to grow more upright rather than spreading out the way they want to. So we're going to make a nice clean cut on an angle a bit above that bud and put some pressure on it because this is a big strong cane. And my hands aren't quite as strong as they used to be. Wow. There, we did it. So let's look at the cut end. It's really good, vigorous growth, but you have to keep it under control because this would go on and on further and further. Now let's look at another rose. This one is a more upright growth. It's got a nice circular canes that are growing upwards and outwards, and the center is pretty open. There are some little small twiggy growths down in the center that I'm going to take out, and a few little stubs of former branches that can come out. So we'll take a close look at it now the way it is, and then we'll show you what it looks like once it gets all trimmed up. So here we have some large shrubs. They make a wonderful background for the other shorter shrubs in front of the garden, and they've been planted 24 years ago this very month. They're vigorous growers, so we do have to thin them out fairly regularly. And in this case, we look at the oldest canes. So they are the biggest and the grayest. The bark is the grayest. You can see in this one that there's some nice warm brown, reddish brown canes. They are this past year's growth. We can't totally take out a whole lot, but you take out maybe 3 of the biggest ones each year, and if it's a particularly big bush, maybe 4. That way, it's the same as with the smaller ones. You take out the extra things, then it leaves more room for air circulation, which is good to keep diseases down and to give more room for new growth. So particularly in these large ones, they will put out new strong canes, and you need to give those canes room to come up and spread out. It's important when you're taking out a whole cane that you take it out right at ground level. And there's times in these older bushes that you do see a lot of stubs at the soil, but the gal who does this, she does a great job of pruning them, because you need to get the whole space opened up a bit and try to do a good job of pruning to the bottom. If you have an old rose bush that's been growing for a number of years that you haven't done anything to, we'll start slowly. Take maybe 3 or 4 of the oldest canes out, and then next year do a few more. And if it's a drastic case, you could cut it all right to the ground, but then it's going to look pretty bare for a long time, and that might be quite a shock too. So if you just slowly, year after year, take out 3 or 4 of the oldest ones, it will rejuvenate itself, and you'll have like a brand new rose bush with a little bit of work and good pruning tools. That's it for our video on spring pruning for the Huronia Rose Society. Just one tip I'll leave you with. other spring bushes too. So when you see that happening in the neighborhood, this bright yellow bush, that will give you a hint that it is time to look at pruning your roses. So hope you've learned something. See you next time.